Can you see my beautiful team?
Yeah, have them smoosh together.
Smoosh. Smoosh, y'all. That's okay. How about now? What does it look like now?
That's very good.
Okay, here we go. Come on in. I told everyone to know that.
And they're going to help present the case.
Oh.
And I don't know if you want to follow along. I printed it out.
Ladies, I know there's a click box where I can show the my desktop.
Bottom share screen. Do you see
it's not clicking for me. Let's see. Wow. Either way, I think I sent it to everyone, so hopefully.
Yeah, we have it up here.
I'll try again here in just a second.
She should be a co-host now, so that might.
Oh, James made you a co-host, so maybe it will click now. Do you want to see if the share screen works now?
For some reason, I had to log in with Google, so I wonder if that's changed.
It would.
Oh, hi, everyone. Oh, shoot.
Oh.
Oh.
Does it say Zoom meeting in the top left for you?
With the ID number?
Yeah, so she's on Zoom. She's just through Google Chrome probably or something.
Yeah, I couldn't use my Perspectives email. It wasn't working.
Oh.
So I logged in with Google instead. Do you think it's okay that people can't see the PowerPoint?
We have it here. We can show it. We could share it from our end.
Perfect.
But yeah.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. We talked about
Thank you so much.
You'll just have to say, next slide, please.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Wait, you guys, I think I just found it.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So now you're screen sharing. So if you have your PowerPoint up in the background.
Ooh,
beautiful.
Yes.
Flowers.
That's a nice, yay.
All right, we got it. Slideshow starting. Okay, so we're all good?
We are good.
So you
Great.
can stop sharing first. Is she still sharing?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Ivy.
Yes.
Will you stop sharing first, and then we'll tell you when,
Thank you.
when we pass it to you, then you can do that share screen again?
Please. That's perfect. Thanks.
We do have this one recording.
Yeah.
Echoing session, do not disturb sign for the store. Doing employee orientation or anything.
And then at the end, we're going to do our case study. Lord knows we're going to her housing journey. I love your shirt, Yolanda. How was group? Yeah, they need to be there. When you start melting from sweat, let me know. I have a fan on my desk. I've been something yeah.
Cars to remove during the snow time and all that type of stuff. I said you do get that perspective. So
I've seen that before though, where people would drop the like if you like
So you guys are live.
Hey, good morning. I know it's late morning, but we're going to get started in a few minutes. If you could please enter in the chat your names and your credentials. It's one of those things that we need to be reporting on participants, so it really helps us to know if you're a RN or a social worker or an LADC or caseworker or whatever credential you've got, and your organization, please. The other thing I'm going to ask you to do today, and you can start thinking about it and enter it in the chat at any time, is ideas for future echo sessions. Do you have a topic that you wish you could collaborate on? Do you have a speaker that you wish you could have heard sometime and they've got some information that will help you do your work? We'd love to have that information sent to us now and whenever you think of it. And we'll do our best to try to pull those resources together. So we're going to wait just a few more minutes for people and then we'll get started.
you're welcome. I know. We're ready if you are.
Great.
Okay, there you are.
We're going to get started. Just so you know, we tend to mute everybody when they come in just because it gets to be really loud with the chatter. But if you do want to speak, remember to hit that mute, unmute button down in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So welcome, everyone. And just another reminder, put in your name, your credential, and your organization in our chat box. We'll use that to verify attendance. This time, we're also encouraging people to share with us topics for future echo sessions or speakers. I have an announcement that we have a Wayside Women's Services Echo website or web page up now where we will, right now it's just kind of the landing page. It's on our Wayside website in general under the professionals tab. We'll send you all the link when we send out the materials today for our evaluation and that kind of thing. But we'll also be adding some other elements. One will be a calendar with our topics going out into the future. A second will be archived information from past sessions. So if you want to access the recording or an agenda or possible handouts or PowerPoints, we'll have those saved there as well for you. And then I want to add a button where we can start to help build our community by reporting our partner impact. What are you doing in your community to help serve women and persons in recovery? And we'll send some samples of what we're thinking about, but I'd love to have a place where we can also do some more connecting with each other beyond this once a month wonderful luncheon together. Today, our didactic is navigating housing options, and Ivy Peterson from Perspectives is going to be our presenter, and we sent out the PowerPoint ahead of time, but we'll also have it on the screen. And I'm going to turn it over to Ivy at this point and let her take on.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Hallie, can you hear me? Everybody? Okay, cool. Please let me know if you can't hear me, if you have questions. This is my beautiful, amazing, brilliant team of case managers here at Perspectives. We'll introduce ourselves and tell you all about us here in a minute, but I want to get started because, frankly, we could talk about housing for days. If you gave us the opportunity, we could talk about this all day long, but we won't do that because we all have a lot of stuff to do. So I'm going to go ahead and start the PowerPoint here. So I'm Ivy. You should know me by now. You see me at all of the ADAD meetings. I have worked in housing for a really long time and have had lots of people have lots of different housing disasters and miracles. So we're going to cover a little bit about that. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time kind of navigating everything at once. So I'm just going to start with my PowerPoint, and you tell me if you need me to back up at all, okay?
Ivy,
So what we're going to cover.
Will you tell us who's in the room with you there?
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. Why don't you start from right here?
Hi, my name is Casey Lowe, and I'm our family intake case manager here at Perspective. So I started housing, getting everybody into the housing and do the intakes and all that.
Thank you.
Bria, I'm the family case manager here.
Can you hear us? That's Bria.
I'm the recovery coach here. I'm one of the family case managers. I'm Lucia, family case manager.
Okay. All right. So, as you already know, I'm sure all of you know that housing is the foundation for stability. It is very, very hard for any families to accomplish anything without a roof over their heads. So at Perspectives, we have supportive housing and permanent supportive housing and transitional supportive housing, funded by a variety of sources, including HUD. And that we work directly with the Hennepin County Continuum of Care to move families from homeless shelters to our housing setting. So they have a lot of transitions that they go through. Casey is the person who meets families in shelter, actually downtown. She goes to PSP most often and helps those families move into our apartments here. We're very fortunate that we are able to furnish our apartments through donations. All of our apartments come fully furnished down to the toothbrush, and we help people get their first and second loads of groceries as well. So we really are very committed here through fundraising and through our partnerships to make sure that families are moving into a home, not just an apartment. So what I'd like to cover today is strategies for supporting families recovering from homelessness, how to research unlawful detainers. I hope that everyone's aware of what an unlawful detainer is. If you're not, it's basically when you move out and someone has to put an eviction on your record. Where to find basic tenant education, and then we're going to do a little case study.
Ivy?
Yeah?
Are you meaning for us to see your PowerPoints at this point?
Yes, if you want to.
Okay, no, we
Yeah,
aren't
share.
seeing them, and so I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is the case.
Would you
Try to share screen again.
I did add share screen, but for some reason it's not.
Would you like for us to do it for you is what the offer
Yes.
I wanted to make.
Absolutely, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why that didn't happen. Okay, is everyone okay now?
Give James just 1 minute to get your PowerPoint up on the screen here.
Sure.
I'll give you the go ahead. Okay, are you able to
Perfect.
see your PowerPoint? Okay.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to go to the third slide in. Housing is the foundation. Okay, so I've worked in the housing field for a long time with highly mobile families, and I know, in my opinion, that access to stable housing is the #1 issue we see with families. Stable housing always leads to other areas of stability, even if it doesn't look like it all the time. And of course, home is what you make it. Everyone has their own idea of what home is. All of our case managers have many stories they can share with you about how different people's ideas of home show up. Part of our job might be to help people learn what home is to them. You can go to the next slide. As we know, there's a lot of homeless people in the world. You can see that just in our country alone, 360,000 people were homeless in 2017. And of course, those are the counted homeless people. There are many, many, many other families who are not counted. So I say we could probably double that statistic. Homelessness continues to be a huge, huge, huge problem that affects every area of life. You already know that across the country, we just need more shelter beds, transitional housing, and affordable housing. I know that after working in this field, affordable housing is the cause that I really take up in my own personal life too, because it's so important. Homelessness and other health issues, including mental health and substance abuse disorder, are, of course, you all know, very, very closely tied together. We don't know what happens first. Are you mentally ill first? Are you addicted first? Are you homeless first? Sometimes they happen all together at once. Many, many children grow up homeless. And as you can imagine, homelessness is a huge ACE. It's a huge adverse childhood experience. So not only growing up homeless is probably going to lead to more homelessness, ACEs also are the #1 predictor of future homelessness. Okay, next slide. This is, of course, this is exactly what our whole work is about, right? Children are only okay when they have an okay place to stay. Next slide. So we like to call it landing. When you land here at Perspectives, what does that feel like for your families, right? We know that families have had varied experience in terms of homelessness, and sometimes having a new home feels uncomfortable for formerly homeless people. I think that we've all had experiences where we move into a new home and everything feels really wild and strange. Well, imagine going from a homeless shelter to a home, so even if we think it's a really good thing, it might bring up a lot of trauma. So sometimes having a home feels uncomfortable. It's really common to see our families co-sleeping and sleeping on the couch. Sometimes they never move to their own bed. We address each case by case, but it's really common to not want to sleep alone. Because, of course, when you think about being homeless, it's safety in numbers. And when you're asleep, that's the most vulnerable you are. So don't be surprised if people are going to sleep together. Of course, food and money management for families is going to look a lot different. Going from having everything provided in a way that you're not comfortable with sometimes, it's a big shift to running your own home afterwards. So we do a lot of coaching around that. And additionally, nutrition needs are very, very different at home versus streets or shelter. The first time you can cook in a long time. Sometimes it's the first time that anyone has ever cooked. And we always try to remember that. Again, sometimes having a home now creates new problems for families, especially homeless relatives are going to show up. We have a lot of trouble sometimes with other homeless folks moving in because somebody has a home. And we know that it's really important for families to want to be together. So it can lead to some complications. So we have some unwanted guests, again, money management. Sometimes people do not know how to be a tenant. We spend a lot of time just educating that about how to be a tenant, how to be a good tenant, strategies to pay rent on time, that kind of thing. Also, furniture is super, super important, of course. Everyone needs a bed, sheets. If your agency or the agencies you partner with are not able to provide that, please reach out to local resources. We have a resource list. We also have lots more resources that we can share with you. Many, many times churches are a very good place to start when looking for ways to furnish a home. Just a little tip that we always like to talk about, family photos are a very inexpensive thing, and they're very powerful. Whenever you can offer to print out, even just on a piece of paper, a family photo and help someone put it in a dollar store frame, that can make all the difference in the world, from going to a new house to this is your home now. What does that mean, you know? And again, part of our job might be, not all the time, but it might be helping people learn what is home. You know, of course, trauma a lot of times happens at home. So sometimes just kind of talking about that. This might be the first time that a family has felt safe in their own home. A lot of times we have the first time that the mom has been in charge of the house, you know? So learning how to create those family rules, those family safety guidelines, and those family traditions, you know, it's all going to help to maintain stability. So empowering the family to commit to their new home, right? Sometimes we have situations where people are not comfortable and they are trying to leave a lot of the time. And so we're trying to help them really commit to being here. Okay, so next slide, please. Again, domestic violence concerns come up a lot when people move to new homes. I would say 80% of our women are seeking safety from someone. And so sometimes that instability and that violence follows them here. Our resource that we use a lot is called Safe at Home program, in which a family's address is hidden. The only person that knows the family's address is the post person, the postman, postwoman. Everything else is routed through the post office. So that is a program that we use a lot. I really strongly encourage anyone that has clients with a domestic abuse history to look into Safe at Home. It's free and it really works well. Again, sometimes things get worse when people come home, right? Sometimes children's behaviors flare due to the changes and trauma triggers, but also we really feel like when kids feel safe, they show you what their hurts are. Perhaps they didn't have a place to show you where those hurts were. And now that they're home, they're definitely going to tell you, either in words and actions, what have you. So don't be surprised if children's behaviors flare. Don't be surprised if mom's mental health flares or chemical needs flare up. Because when we feel safe, we stop hiding. Don't be surprised to learn that the family has much deeper and serious trauma than you realize. So the previous assessments even, part of our job might be to help people learn what home is to them. Utilities bills catch up. It's really, really common for an old Excel bill to find a family when they first move in. So kind of just guess that that's going to happen. Again, local resources and energy assistance can help get caught up. But many, many times women have moved in and that $1,000 Excel bill found them when they got here and creates a new crisis. And sometimes people are ashamed to ask questions about homemaking. Sometimes it's best to assume instead of waiting for someone to ask for help, to bring it up in conversation. You know, sometimes we have moms that are, you know, very, very young people who have never cooked before. So we offer some nutrition support and one-on-one nutrition consultations with the nutritionist. But can also be as simple as helping people research really simple recipes online. It's that basic. Cleanliness is in the eye of the beholder, and so is order. What looks like chaos and filth might be very, very normal to someone else. It's very good. We have a landlord that's very, very skilled at educating people about hoarding and cleanliness standards. I think that it's a good idea to let people know what the standards are in your local community for hoarding, because we all have to do housing inspections at some point. Again, we all know that hoarding happens for a variety of reasons, always related to trauma. So get some supervision, some mental health supervision. If you feel like someone you are serving might be hoarding or might be having some hoarding behaviors, because obviously it's a delicate topic. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, this is what we say. Things look different. This Looks a little wild to me, but this guy is probably just enjoying a meal. So don't be surprised if you see this. This is stability. Next slide. So unlawful detainers. Okay, most people have some wreckage of the past to clean up. In housing, it usually shows up as a UD, right? A UD is basically when you get evicted and your landlord has to engage the sheriff to move you out of an apartment or a home where you're living. Is not it? I mean, UDs are hard, right? It's pretty much hard, pretty much impossible to get them off your record. But they're a reality that we have to deal with. And I wish we had a secret that we use to make UDs go away. We don't have that. If anyone knows, let's get together and make some money because everyone has this problem. After 7 years, UDs usually go away, but it is actually on your criminal record. You need to look them up on the Minnesota court's website, which will be at the end of this presentation. You look it up just like you'd look up any other case by the person's name. When you see them online, it will show the rental agency where the person rented from. Then you need to turn into a detective and research how to get in front of someone from that agency, or if that agency is closed, you need to get some paperwork saying the agency is closed, because what you're trying to do with your client is have them address the problem, right? And then make a plan towards repayment. That's not saying that you have to pay it all at once. Most landlords want that. But the most important thing is to get in front of that old landlord or company and start communicating, right? We do a lot of coaching around with our clients around how to talk about what you've been through, right? How to talk about the fact that you might be in recovery now if you want to just close that, or what your family struggles have been. In our experience with landlords and other people, nobody likes an excuse, but everybody loves an explanation. So helping people to explain what happened and why it happened, how you're trying to fix it and why it won't happen again is the only trick we have. That's all we got. So here are some steps. First of all, you all know ignoring it will not help. We all want to deny everything, but it will only slow you down. Offer money to a previous landlord. Again, get creative, use your resources. Maybe someone can't offer all of it, but they can offer a chunk. Get a receipt. I had one person go so far as to write up a contract and had it notarized by a notary public that she could pass on to future landlords. And also really something that seems so simple, but it goes a long way, is a letter of explanation. Again, not an excuse, but an explanation. If your client can write one, if you can write one to support that, or any other professional, it might really make all the difference. Because as we know, this work is always based on relationship. So forming a relationship with a potential landlord, for us, seems to go a long way. And again, cross your fingers, use your spiritual practice, because this is not going to be easy. Okay, so next slide, please. So another thing, because we have permanent supportive housing and transitional supportive housing, our transitional program, our clients need to leave within 2 years, period. There's no extensions, there's no other options. You need to be able to rent a place within 2 years of being here. So as you can imagine, that's a very large undertaking to stabilize, to address your mental health concerns, and then to find another place and pay market rate rent. So one thing that we have noticed is helpful is to do some rudimentary tenant education, right? Just basically how to be a good tenant. We like to use RentWise from the U of M. It's local, there's a free option. It's very user-friendly. It's basically a webinar or a slideshow that you can do that has very good information for tenants to use. Again, there's both free and paid editions. We're all nonprofits, so I encourage you to use the free edition. The nice thing is that when a tenant completes this, there's a certificate included that says I participated in this, which is great proof for potential landlords that you have been educated. So I really encourage you to do that. There's a few other renters hotlines that I actually forgot to put in our resource packet, but there's very good resources out there for being a renter. Now, the thing about Perspectives is that we're spoiled because our landlord is in-house. Although she's not part of our specific team, she's part of Perspectives. So it's very easy for us to negotiate. if someone has their rent late, if someone has, you know, an issue that we need to address. We're really spoiled. So I don't have a lot of insight about dealing with landlords that you don't know. I'm sorry. But some of my lovely team can talk more about their strategies with that in previous jobs. Okay, final slide is our housing resources. Of course, Minnesota courts, that's where you look up UDs. Housing Link is for affordable housing. I put that in quotes because affordable is kind of a trigger word for me. But there are some really great resources there. Section 8 waiting lists. One of the things that we do basically on the first day you get here is we decide, or you help you decide which Section 8 wait list you want to get on. Because as we all know, Section 8 wait lists can range from being immediately open in smaller populated areas to having like a 9-year wait list in Hennepin County. So the most important thing to do is get in line and start waiting. And then hopefully by the time your name comes up, you won't need that support anymore. You will have been able to find a job and rent your own place. An additional thing though, Section 42 is something that I recently learned about, which is a housing program for lower income families, not super low income, but medium, like working families. Section 42 is a great resource for it. Maybe a two-parent household who has a low income, or maybe a mom who is just a single mom but working full-time. So I encourage you all to look into both of those. And that's what I have for the slideshow. Does anyone have questions?
If you have questions, that you identify yourself when you unmute, and then after we take a little time for questions, we'll get into the case study. So I'm not seeing any questions, anything in the chat. Let's go ahead and Ivy, let's have your team help us with your case study.
All right. Okay, I'm going to move this. Need them to hear. Let's see. Okay.
Ivy, if
Yep.
we had a little hard time hearing them when they were introducing themselves from the couch, so they may have to come a little closer if they're going to talk to the computer for us.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
And
zoom
I'm just going to put this on my lap too, and I'm tired of being on camera, so that's perfect. Okay. So our case study is someone who has lived here for a very long time. She moved in here in a transitional unit with one child, two children, and is now moving out with 5 children, 1 on the way. 2-parent home and some vague family support is what I can say. Okay, so I would like to have the team kind of discuss now what, we'll call her Amanda, what Amanda's housing journey has been like. And Bria, wave your hand, Bria, has worked with her very, very closely. So I want Bria to kind of give a little bit of history, and we actually have a very positive update to end with. So it'll be a good, happy ending.
So when I started with Amanda, she just found out she was pregnant, and she got on the Duluth Section 8 wait list. Actually, from a family friend, I believe. So she signed up on that.
Can everyone hear Bria?
And about 6 months, she got, her name came up on the list. So her and her significant other were able to go up to Duluth and were able to get a housing, get the paperwork started, and then they were approved in January for a 4-bedroom voucher.
So this is one of those instances where our family chose to leave the metro area because the wait list was much, much shorter and had a lot more availabilities of large rentals in the Duluth area. So as you can imagine, this is going to be kind of a culture shock for our family moving up there. But they're doing it.
Yeah, so Amanda went up there in January to receive her housing subsidy. I actually up with her and get the paperwork started, but that was really exciting.
So Bria actually drove up there with them, just so you know.
We drove up to Duluth and we were able to.
Ivy?
Yep.
I hate to interrupt, but could we have you put the computer back where it was and folks come and take your seat and talk?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
That
Okay.
would help us because it kind of sounds like you're underwater. And then sometimes
okay.
we see the ceiling. So
All right, guys. Okay. And I come over here. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you guys. Sorry about that.
So as I said, I went up with Amanda and a significant other to Duluth, and we were able to get a holding packet at Canterbury College. We were able to get that day, which is really great. And then when we were up there, we were able to drive around and look at the different neighborhoods and look at where the bus line was, where some of the local resources was. So once they were able to move up there, they kind of knew what they were just looking for. After that, we were able to go to the landlord and we came back down to the metro. And then about a month after, Amanda and her family went up to Duluth and thought they found the landlord up there. However, the property did not pass inspection, which is typical. So I worked in housing before this, and so the problem, one thing to Section 8 is that something will say it's a 4-bedroom. However, it's not Section 8 4-bedroom. So in order to be considered a 4-bedroom, you have a closet and certain sizes. Each bedroom has to be a certain size actually in order to be considered a legal bedroom. So Section 8 is very particular with that, and also it has to pass, has railings and all sorts of little nitpick stuff that if it doesn't pass inspection, Section 8 won't pay for it.
So that was a real disappointment for this family who found one at first that they were really excited about. And then, of course, it didn't pass inspection, so it's back to the drawing board.
We're back to the drawing board. So we will continue to look. I helped the family look on both Craigslist and Housing Link. And they recently just went up beginning of this week. And I found a place on Craigslist that was actually HOA approved, and that's the Housing Authority, for people that don't know. And so those are really great places. If you know landlords that are HOA approved, right, and booked the Section 8, all the units are already approved, so they 99% of the time will pass inspection, know what Section 8 is looking for regarding sizes, voucher size, rent size, they know all that stuff, which is really great. And Amanda was able to secure a unit with the landlord, which is really exciting. But I would say from my opinion, if you can find a landlord that booked with Section 8 housing subsidies before, they know the drill with if they have a housing subsidy. It's really, really helpful.
It was really helpful for Bria. She found this place on Craigslist, and so never underestimate the power of Craigslist.
Yeah. And also too with Craigslist, people won't say they're Section 8, but calling a landlord and saying, "Are you not Section 8?" and really showing yourself, saying, "So the great thing with Section 8, you're going to get most of your rent to be paid through the voucher. I can have my rent vendor pay you if you're on benefits." Just really showing yourself to the landlord, because landlords in the end want the money. Absolutely. That's the biggest thing they want. So even if I've learned in my previous housing experience, if you have a UD, having your rent vendor paid, landlords will look over the UD because they know they're going to automatically get their money every month, and that's what landlords looking for. They want their money every month.
I love Bria. She knows all this stuff. Anything else?
No, I think so. I guess my biggest thing is really check out Craigslist and talk to landlords and sell yourself, because a good working relationship with a landlord, in my previous experience, worked. And I worked from previous housing jobs. I had landlords that would call me, be like, "I know you have good clients. You wrote, if the rent isn't paid, I will call you and you get the rent paid to us." And so having a relationship with the landlord as a case manager, the nurse, and stopping to landlord office after client move and say, "Hey, I want to check in on so and so. How are things going?" They really appreciate that, because you can be the buffer between you and the client. The client doesn't have the skills to always advocate for themselves.
Bria, how long did this whole thing take?
She applied to now almost 2 years. Yeah. She applied for the subsidy, and that is very typical in my experience with housing. It takes a while, and you also, once you get subsidy, you only have a certain time period in order to secure housing. And once that is 90 days, and you can apply for extension, but depending on your worker, you may not get the extension approved. And so it's be able to prove who you called, why you got denied, what were your barriers, because you need to show yourself out to Section 8 for whoever holds your subsidy. It's something I've learned. It's to and one thing I've relearned is we give a kind of sheet for them to fill out so that they can say who they've called, how much they rented, what the background they're looking for, so they can also track it while giving some empowerment behind it.
Nice job, Bria.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to talk about real quickly with Amanda, there are some hidden costs for housing search, right? There are just costs that I forgot about until we had to deal with them. But gas money to get somewhere, a hotel to stay and look for a place, money for application fees. I bring that up just because it's a lot of money. And if clients don't have a resource as such, it's going to be really, really hard. Amanda, I'm going to say her real name. Amanda had all of us, and it took her 2 years still. So I guess that's my Debbie Downer, but also encouragement is that it's going to take a while.
It takes time to drive.
It takes time to drive around.
If you're trying to find it, so if you have a appointment with landlord, I would say to make sure that I get there. If
Yes.
the landlord won't, if you miss your appointment, landlord will move on to the next.
Bria's saying that it takes a while to get there, obviously, too. So if you have an appointment with a landlord, it's super important to get there in time. All right, I'm wondering, so when I decided to present this, this situation was not solved. We were kind of pulling our hair out a little bit because Amanda was coming up against the Section 8 deadline and didn't have anything. So as of last Friday, when we left, we didn't know what was going to happen with this family. As of yesterday, we got the news that she was approved. And so I'm just saying, that's just how it goes.
It goes down a lot. You go last minute in the paperwork and no one works.
Yeah, they can't hear you when you're talking back there. So it's really going to be like, it's touch and go. In fact, we were hoping that if she didn't have anything, we could ask you all, what now? So luckily, what she figured it out, but it took a long time. So what kind of questions do you have? What can we talk about now? Whatever you need.
Yeah, let's move ahead and see if we have anyone with questions. Again, be sure to identify yourself or suggestions or new resources that you may have found that you want to share that we haven't spoken about.
I had a question just right up front. This is Jessie Everts from Wayside. You guys did a ton of case management way up to Duluth. In that case, does Section 8 have any case management kind of built into that system? And or do you guys ever coordinate with another kind of case management agency on the other end who might know the housing market a little bit better? How does that work usually when it's a distance?
Yeah, that's a great question. To my knowledge, there's no Section 8 support. It's kind of a jungle. It depends on the county, though. There can be some more people who are more actively involved. I think that for us, with this family specifically, we are really anxious to get her connected to some recovery resources up north. So I think that now that she has been accepted, we can start working on that. But it's a very good point. I think that something to pass the torch on to another social service agency would be invaluable for a family's stability.
Yeah. Are there, you haven't talked much about like GRH, Section 8, the differences between the different kinds of funding for housing. Maybe would you be able to talk a little bit about that? Yep. And if there's, an easier one for us as maybe treatment providers or non-housing folks to work with?
Yep, Maria is the expert on this, so she can talk very eloquently.
So previous before that I worked with, Dakota County, with people in corporate, and I was contacted through Dakota County, and so I worked with pretty much the range of housing subsidies. So there's something called GRH, which a lot of people know the group residential housing, and that's for long-time homeless people, and you need, and mainly but there are some families with GRH. But I believe to get a GRH, there's a list of stuff you need for that. So you have to have a serious potential SPMI, long-term homeless, and be literally homeless, like on the streets, to get into that. And then there's Section 8, which everyone knows about, but then there's also, and that's where you pay 30% of your income, but then there's also bridging subsidy, which is very similar to Section 8. It's 5 years long. It can be extended past the 5 years. There's also shelter plus care, which is also pay 30% of your income. And then many different counties who have different funding. So I know in Dakota County, there's something called the ESG grant, which is the Emergency Solution Grant, which is a 2-year grant. You pay 30% income. So it all depends on the county and what kind of funding they have. Each county, when Dakota County, you have to go through CORE entry, you get assessed by the FISP for that. And that's assessed based on what is your vulnerability to becoming homeless again. And so some people, you would think they'd get housing something, they'd be rapidly housing where they assume they can get a job and be self-sufficient, and then a lot of times you get case managers to help you get those skills behind that. Does anybody have any questions about them? I know time went fast.
Any
Thank
questions
you so
about-
much. Any more questions? Are we seeing, I don't see any on the chat. Or suggestions? Be sure if you're trying to talk to us that you unmute yourself. All right, well, we don't have a lot of discussion. Maybe we could take a moment here and do some brainstorming. And if a question comes to mind about housing, let's pop that in. But let's do some brainstorming about other topics or issues or
that came in about
Oh.
housing before we switch topics.
yeah, let's do that.
We'll read it from there.
It says, Ivy, can you speak about what it is like to be on the other side of
Oh.
coordinated entry?
Yes, I certainly can, but I think the person who can speak the best on that is Casey. Come to the mic, Casey. Here she comes.
Hi, so I do our intake here for Perspective. So I have probably the most interaction with coordinated entry in general. And I guess just to I'll just kind of give a little bit of a rundown of what that would look like for somebody who's on the other side of coordinated entry. But if you have any more of a specific question after I'm done with that, please feel free to ask. So when somebody is first entering into a homeless shelter, they would go to the shelter team to essentially enter into that. At that time, they would enter into either a homeless shelter, or this also applies for a domestic violence shelter within Hennepin County. So within 2 weeks of entering into either a domestic violence shelter or a homeless shelter, they will have that VI SPDAT completed with a coordinated entry worker. So that VI SPDAT essentially identifies different barriers that people would have towards obtaining housing and essentially assess where they're at right now. So that screening, I believe, takes about an hour to 2 hours. And then after that, they're given what their range would be. So people are able to find out immediately whether they would qualify for supportive housing, if that's permanent or transitional, whether they'd be down from that would be rapid rehousing, or some people are even selected for the self-resolve category, which would mean that they have no options available to them through coordinated entry because they have such little barriers to obtaining housing. It wouldn't be as beneficial as people who maybe need higher support. At that time, then, they are put into a pool essentially within each category. So people don't have any sort of idea whether or not they will be selected from this pool or what that time might look like. So people are really just instructed during that time to to stay in shelter or just working on whatever they can do to move themselves out of shelter at that time too. So people are kind of two things. So these different things through coordinated entry are typically only available to people who are in shelter. However, at the same time, you kind of are wanting to be working on getting yourself out at the same time. So to me, it's kind of interesting the way that both of those things work together. They have no sort of time frame on if or when they would get any referral to rapid rehousing or to supportive housing like Perspectives. So we've had people who have been in shelter for, 6 months to a year, even down to like 3 days. I've gotten them within 3 days and gotten them into Perspective. So it's very, very dependent really on their personal factors and their barriers, and that is how people are selected for the program. So there's no sort of wait list within coordinated entry. It's really just a pool, and then the coordinated entry workers will try to match the referrals best to the different programs.
To add on to that, thank you so much. That's really helpful. How have you learned from Perspective side of things how to help people through that system as best as you can? There's no easy answer, like you said, but are there some tricks that you've learned?
Yeah, so for me, like when people kind of just call me and ask about like how to get into Perspectives, for me, I think the most important thing is to be 100% transparent with that whole process so that people know that there's really no specific time frame that you'd be able to get this. It's really a waiting game, and it really depends on your personal boundary or your personal barriers to obtaining housing too. I really try to say that there's no sort of formula for getting somebody through this. It's just so dependent on the individual that I really personally don't recommend people going to shelter to obtain housing unless that's their only option. I know that shelters can be really triggering for a lot of people, and so really just trying to make sure that we reserve those resources for the people that need it the most. I try to be as upfront about that as possible, because really there's no tricks or tips necessarily as much as I wish that there was. So our hands are a little bit tied, and I try to be as out front with that as possible.
Thank you. I don't know if that answered Kelly's question or if there are any other questions that came up for people because of Casey's answers there. Anybody else?
I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
I have a question. I'm wondering, obviously perspectives can't do everything for everyone.
Yeah.
Who are the other players who do supported housing services in our area? Who else is there anyone else?
No, there's Wayside, who we love. There really aren't. I wish that there were more resources. I wish that there was more supportive housing. I wish there was more affordable housing. Does anyone else know?
Families Moving Forward.
Families Moving Forward is a good one. Lutheran Social Services has some housing support. There's nothing that's the exact replica with case management and chemical health. That just doesn't exist yet. But Jeremiah program, we don't have very many women who qualify, but that is an amazing program for housing and education at the same time. It's been very rare that our clientele matches up with the criteria, because there are some criteria, but that's a wonderful program too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to speak more on coordinated entry, I think, everyone has heard that it's really changed perspectives, because it has. I'm sure that if those of you who were familiar with our program before, it was a lot different than it is now. And although it's taken a couple of years for us to adjust to housing first mentality, to being trauma informed, it's taken a couple of years to adjust, but I kind of feel like we're in the swing of things now. But it has definitely changed everything about what we do. So you can thank coordinated entry for that, but also, as Casey said, we are getting the women who need us the most. And now we're starting to get, because we had such great relationships with treatment centers, right? And it was such a nice transition for women to learn how to be sober and then to come to a place where they're going to continue to learn how to be sober without any interruptions. Well, now that's interrupted by shelter. And a lot of stuff can go down while you're at shelter. So we really beefed up our chemical health services, our mental health services. And of course, everything through a trauma-informed lens helps. But it's not easy. I guess that's how I kind of wanted to start this whole thing out, was that these are amazing rock stars. You all are amazing rock stars. This work is hard. It's long. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's just tough. And you're doing a great job. I assure you that all of you are doing amazingly well, considering. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Do we have another question? Okay, well then let's move on to some brainstorming. Are there things, you said, I wish there was a social service agency to do a handoff in Duluth. Maybe that's a topic for a future ECHO session.
I think so.
What else can we think about that would be helpful in your service, or anyone who's on the ECHO session today? What are you needing to know? What access do you wish you had? And let's share some of those topics while we have a few minutes together.
Anything you'd like to see?
And this is for anyone on the session, perspectives and all our other attendees.
Yeah, unmute yourself or type in the chat box, either one.
I think recovery resources is always a good one. Mm-hmm. I would like to see, what? Ooh, yes. Rebecca just spoke up at parenting for older children. We always need parenting assistance help. Ooh, and navigating arms resources. That's a great one, Kelly. Mm-hmm. ARMS is a confusing referral process for me.
Arms. Yeah.
Good topics. Anyone else or more? Well, I'm one of those people, a firm believer in that we don't need to stretch out a meeting just to fill an hour. Let me just go over a couple of wrap-up things and then we'll move on. Next time we meet is June 7th. And then we will not be meeting in July. That first Thursday in July, I think, is the 4th. So I don't think we'll meet.
Okay.
We'll take July off. Next time we meet on June 7th, we're talking about medication-assisted treatment with Dr. Brian Grahan. And I hope that you all know that you're welcome to invite colleagues to join us anytime. You can always reach me or Sarah via our emails because you get them from us. Just respond and we can add people at least to the invitation list. An invitation is not a mandate. You know, people can choose to participate when they have time and the inclination. Sarah will be sending out your evaluations, and I realize now that I didn't introduce who's in our room. We have Jesse Everts here, our Vice President for Clinical Services at Wayside, James McMurray, our IT guru, wonderful person who makes everything happen, yes.
Thank you.
And Sarah Curry, who's our ECHO coordinator and helps make everything happen behind the scenes. So we're all here, and we're glad you're here too. So Sarah will send out the evaluations. If you haven't typed in your name, credential, and organization, we need that for our attendance. You can always email us with a future idea for a speaker or maybe a new partner. We could reach out to someone. Or a case study. If you've got a case and we need to find the information, let's go the other way around. Rather than starting with the topic and then finding a case, if you have a case that needs an expert, share that with us and we'll do our best to facilitate a discussion.
Especially next month, since it's around medication-assisted treatment. If you've got a client who's on a medication-assisted treatment or needs to be or wants to be, that would be a great time to talk about it with the doctor from Hennepin Healthcare, HCMC. So,
Okay.
And, volunteer yourself. Thank you so much, Ivy and Perspectives and your team there. It's been a great experience. And if there's nothing else, I'm ready to adjourn.
thanks, you all.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next month.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.